breaking your golden handcuffs is really not just quitting a W-2 job. In fact, it's far from that. It is recognizing how you can take your situation and turn them into those handcuffs and turn them into powerful tools.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
David Mcllwaine is a seasoned entrepreneur and successful executive with deep experience in business growth, scale, and delivering results. His real estate experience is vast, spanning over 20 years. David, welcome to the show.
Sam, I love hearing all that with the deep baritone voice. Thank you so much for having me.
David, the pleasure is mine. There are 3 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show. In 90 seconds or less, can you tell me, where did you start, where are you now, and how did you get there?
I started in corporate America running a sales force after 25 years in the advertising industry. I got downsized. 18 months later, I was downsized again after being the chief revenue officer for a tech startup. And I went through a divorce. So what happened is I could no longer live on an airplane as a high-flying corporate executive carrying a Toomey suitcase and a Toomey briefcase and sitting in seat 1D. I had to figure out how to make a living on my own.
Wow.
And I came into real estate. Fast forward 10 years later, I own a residential real estate brokerage and I'm a general partner in 1,000 multifamily doors and own a private equity real estate firm helping investors to maximize their returns.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. I love that. What were the things that took you, or that said, okay, that said, hey, real estate's the way. That's the next path forward after getting cut once, but twice. I mean, that's painful in and of itself.
Yeah, what was pretty painful was that the day I got cut the first time was a merger. And I lost my job the day I hit the quota for the upcoming quarter. And it was like my, I don't know, 13th or 14th quarter in a row I had hit the budget prior to the start.
Wow.
So my team and I were pretty good at what we did. Corporate merger. If you've been a top shelf dog, you know that a merger means job loss. Period. Every single time. And from there, I went to tech and I said, okay, I'm good. I'll dust myself off and get back up on the horse. I did. I reversed 7 negative quarters of revenue decline and lost my job the day after we closed on a Series B round of funding because the CEO came in and said, hey, Chief Revenue Officer, those 35 sales executives you were going to hire, those 35 reps, we're not going to hire them because we paid off our debt. And I said, what debt? And I'm the second in command and I didn't know about debt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I got to real estate because I realized that I could never again give away agency over my career to the vagaries of someone else's decision-making.
Right. Right. Yeah, man, that's powerful. That's powerful. And that's, I mean, I can't imagine. I've never lived in that world, but I mean, just hearing that just makes my skin kind of crawl. Like, wow, okay, so you've done everything you're supposed to do. You've done it all right. You've hit home runs for the company and they're like, hey, thanks.
Yeah. And it's happened. I watched it happen to my father in the 80s. I watched it happen to my friends. I watched it even happen to my former wife. I've watched it happen to people ad infinitum. And I'm not saying that corporate America is bad. Hear me out. I'm saying that we as investors and entrepreneurs, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're listening because you want to learn something, you want to invest in something, you want to grow something. And all of us are seeking some knowledge.
Right.
And I say this because I don't want people being blindsided. And it's painful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you saw real estate as the next thing to get into. What were the steps in that journey that bring you to today?
Well, it's real simple. In advertising, the internet destroyed a lot of vehicles and created a lot of vehicles. And I have seen technology displace realtors. I have seen technology displace newspapers. I have seen Amazon displace retailers. So I went through a Moses in the desert period. And I looked at all kinds of different ways that I could meet certain criteria. One of them is to never be displaced by Amazon or technology. That was a real core foundation of mine, is I've got to have a product and an offering that the technology cannot take away. AI's introductions, people are petrified. I'm not. The second thing I had to do was find a way to build wealth for others. And that was really important. I didn't want to build wealth for me. I got enough. I'm okay. But what I really enjoy is teaching others how to make critical decisions, how to think for themselves, and how to create agency and sovereignty in their lives. All right. So there's items 1, items 2, items 3. What products fulfill that? Shelter. Shelter does not get replaced. We might replace around the edges, but ultimately, at the end of the day, every single one of us, according to Maslow, and he was right, we have a hierarchy of needs: food, clothing, shelter.
Right.
So I'm not going to provide food. I'm not a very good farmer. I got a garden growing right now, and I'm waiting for the yield. My first thing was a couple slices of dill. So I was happy to see that.
Right.
But I can't feed the masses.
Right.
I'm not God. I'm not going to make it rain. And I've done a rain dance and it didn't yield any fruit. So therefore, shelter, I can help with that. And that led me to multifamily and to housing. So I started as an agent, went from an agent to a brokerage owner, went from a brokerage owner in single family. I bought some investments. Then I discovered the power of multifamily and the power of leverage. And I jumped in with both feet.
That's cool. I love that. And that, and that brings two things, that satisfies your never be displaced, and then building your wealth for others idea. Tell me, where you guys have 1,000 units at this point?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
1,000 doors.
I love it. 1,000 doors. I'm sorry. Yeah. 1,000 doors at this point. What has been that journey like, and where are you guys now? I mean, a lot of operators have gone pencil down. It's July of 2023, if I get the year right, that we're recording this. So where are you guys now in that process? Are you still actively buying? If so, what and where and why? Tell me about that side of your business.
Well, it's been a challenge for sure. We haven't made an acquisition in over 12 months.
Okay.
We were in the middle of an acquisition in Q2 of last year when the Fed raised rates for the first time, and then they raised rates by it hurts my heart to think about the number of percentage rate, by 500 basis points or by 350 basis points in 90 days.
Yeah.
And we weren't able to perform on a contract, and we lost over $1 million earnest money, my partners and I.
Whoa.
Oh, ow, yeah.
Whoa.
And talk about great learnings. It's a great series of learnings. And one of the biggest learnings that I came away with this was, okay, I can't control the Fed. And that might sound like a stupid learning. But the reality is that there's so much that people think they can control that is out of their control. But what I can do is make informed, strategic, calculated risks. And perhaps we hadn't made the right calculated risk.
How? I'm sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
Go ahead.
What things, looking back on that, okay, yeah, hindsight's 2020, I think, maybe not all,
right?
But okay, so you lost $1 million in earnest money. Maybe you didn't calculate.
My partners and I lost it. I didn't lose it all. I did lose a big 6-figure number, but yeah, we as a team lost over $1 million.
I don't like losing $1. I lost a $50 bill. We were on vacation last week, and I had to take the kids down to the pool. And so I stuck a 50 in my driver's license in my back pocket of my swimsuit, and then somehow, or my room key and a $50 bill, because I didn't want to take other stuff with me. And I lost a 50 at some point. I'm like, oh, crud, where'd that go? Of course, by this point in time, it's gone. I was upset about that. Like, I'm like, crud, I'm an idiot. But it wasn't $1 million. I mean,
yeah. Well, losing money is easy. right?
Yeah, it is. It is. I can attest. It is very easy.
Losing's easy. Learning from it is growth.
Yeah.
So a couple of the things that we learned, right? I can't predict the Fed. I have to be much more sensitive to the winds of change in the investor community. The reason we fell apart was that we had a 1031 exchange that came to us at the 11th hour and said, we're not going to do it. We'd already had 3 extensions, and that was about 18% of our total investment. And we didn't have enough time from the seller to reload that $1031 amount.
Yeah.
And
they had you by the throat.
by the barrel.
Yeah, with $1 million on the line, and they see that as like, so you're saying if I don't extend, I get $1 million? Okay, twist my arm. I don't extend. That's basically what happened.
Yeah, the reality is that they'd extended twice already.
Yeah.
And they were just tired of it. So I understand. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't like it. You know, and I can dig into a whole bunch of operational issues, or I could dig into a whole bunch of emotional issues. And the lessons there are really powerful. Like when the Fed starts making moves, people do react.
Yeah.
The entire commercial real estate marketplace is seized.
Yeah. Slowed down a lot. What is it? What is it? Year over year, we're what, 75% fewer multifamily transactions? I think that's right.
I think we're at 15% of year over year transactions.
Yeah.
So it's fallen off by 70 to 80%.
Right.
Either way you look at it.
Right.
It's a huge hole. And your listeners might be thinking, so what? Here's what that means to everybody. If there are no transactions, intrinsically values are not known. If the values are not known, it makes it really hard to secure financing.
Right.
Financing is the #1 expense of every commercial real estate investment because we make money from leverage. So we want to use financing as a tool to expand our profits and your returns.
Right.
So if we don't have that transactional volume, we don't have value, we don't have good financing numbers. Therefore, we also don't have any development or greatly reduced development. As we have greatly reduced development, the pipeline for the future shrinks further. Home builders get scared. Condo builders get scared. The reason all of us have all this value in our homes that we own is because there's a national supply of housing. There's a shortage. There's a national shortage of housing. Compound this with COVID, and you've got all kinds of things coming at us. So the lack of volume is not just about somebody not losing commissions or not making commissions. It really does affect a large swath of people. And it's jobs, right? Politics is local and politics is jobs. The economy is jobs, the economy is pay. All of these things have an impact and a domino effect for sure.
That they do. What are you doing right now then to position yourself to take advantage of this economic cycle, or wherever we are in this economic cycle, I guess I should say?
A couple of things are going on. I've been pencils down for a while. I'm picking my pencil back up. We are starting to see some normalcy.
Yeah.
Lending is starting to slowly return. The Fed has a requirement to lend so much through Fannie and Freddie, and they need to hit those lending targets. So there will be some easing of lending constraints. The DSCRs, the debt service coverage ratios, have skyrocketed now on what they require. So it used to be that you had to have a 1.2 times cash flow to pay your debt service. Now it's 1.3. So that's a 50% increase in the free cash you have to have in an asset to get lending. Right. Which means you can't borrow the same leverage, which means you've got to borrow less, which means the investor is getting smaller returns, no matter what.
The investor is getting smaller returns, and assets have to come down in price.
Or the lending has to go up, and the assets haven't come down in price, which is why the market is seized.
Right.
Because if you're selling one of your properties, you believe that it's worth X and the market says it's worth X minus Y, but you don't need to sell it. There's no compelling reason for you to sell it. Why would you?
Right. Right.
And so part of that freight train is coming because commercial properties are typically mortgaged on 5-year cycles. And a lot of them in the last go-go version of the teens have, or the 20s, have been leveraged on 3 to 5-year floating rates, and those are coming due. So I'm starting to look at the beginnings of that freight train, doing shows like this to talk to people about our company and what we do, and to get out the word that you can still make money in real estate. We're also looking at some different asset classes, like self-storage, like some funds for oil and natural gas, build to rents, and townhomes and apartment complexes. So it's not completely void. It's just that we're shifting our focus more to education right now than we are to acquisition, because we don't want to acquire just to acquire.
Right. Right. No, you don't. I mean, you could easily just buy yourself a job and or an albatross. If
Yeah, you buy yourself an albatross, and not the kind you have in golf when you get a 2 out of 5.
Right. No, not that. This is the what was the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner? Wasn't that the albatross? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember exactly, but it's a heavy burden on your shoulders, right?
It's a dead bird. They hang around the guy.
Right.
Yeah, because he shot the bird, and the bird was a
right.
corpse. And so then they made the sailor wear the dead bird around his neck. So that's the albatross around your neck reference. It's like, oh, great.
And it's heavy and stinky and a burden.
And a burden, right? So you might just get yourself an out. I've never talked about that here on the podcast before. Okay, on that nasty thought, let's keep moving. David, hey, I do want to talk about something. Speaking of mindsets and mindset shifts, one of the things I see a lot on social media from you is just that. Talking about your mindset, talking about getting, I think your podcast, is your podcast called Break Your Golden Handcuffs? Do you have a podcast called that, or is that just the name of your?
That is correct. My podcast is called Break Your Golden Handcuffs, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Tell me a little bit about that, and then tell me what some of the things are you cover on that show, because I think this is relevant to kind of just how you're approaching your business. And then, to a lot of our listeners, I think that some of what you're sharing here would be incredibly valuable.
Well, I appreciate that, Sam. So the show is around the concept that we've all got handcuffs in some way, shape, or form that we let shackle us.
Yeah.
The break your golden handcuffs logic is that, or the traditional definition of a set of golden handcuffs is that you're going to have a job, you can't quit, because if you quit, you lose money. I had golden handcuffs where I was making so much money, I couldn't replace the money anywhere else.
Right.
It wasn't that I had to wait to get paid a bonus. It was that I just couldn't walk away from what I did. I didn't love it, but it was awesome income.
Right.
Or I've got a pilot who loves to fly, but that's all he does is fly. So he doesn't want to do just being a pilot for 40 years. There's more to life. So one of my pilot friends started a cattle ranch on the side. I got another pilot friend who's a syndicator. There's different things to do. If let's say that you're a police officer and you love being a police officer, but you don't want to make that the only way you create a source of income.
Right.
So part of that is to recognize that breaking your golden handcuffs is really not just quitting a W-2 job. In fact, it's far from that. It is recognizing how you can take your situation and turn them into those handcuffs and turn them into powerful tools. Maybe they become bracelets. Maybe they become assets. So in my story, I made a plan of what was going to happen once I left corporate America. Now, I left involuntarily, so my plan wasn't completely executed. But had I not made that plan, I would have been in a whole different position. I never missed a meal. My kids never missed a meal. I went through a really expensive, nasty divorce. No child support payment was ever missed. My kids went to college on the college plans that I created during those handcuff days. So I might not have had the perfect freedom at that moment, but now I have an agency over my day, my time, my decision-making, my career, who and where I work. And the idea that about mindset is that we have choice.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that.
They don't realize that. And there's this idea that there's entrepreneurial people and then there's not entrepreneurial people. It sounds like you would dispel that myth.
Interesting question. I haven't thought of it like that. What I would say is that I was highly entrepreneurial in a publicly traded company. And I was successful because of my entrepreneurial thought. I would challenge that and say, instead, it's those who think and take action and those who process and take no action.
Yeah.
You can be an entrepreneur inside of Disney. In fact, those are some of the best jobs Disney has, right? When you're an Imagineer, you're an entrepreneur.
Right.
And you can be an entrepreneur inside of a law firm and start a different practice. Or an entrepreneur doesn't have to just be their own company owner.
And I like that. I like that because you talk about breaking the golden handcuffs. It's this idea that there is capacity in each of us, no matter what we're doing, to set things up the way or to design the life that we want. And we're not necessarily just tied to doing this. I think it takes some training, and probably maybe you'd agree or disagree with that, but I think it takes some training to get people outside of that mindset that this is the way I make an income or this is the way I provide for my family. It's like, okay, that's a way of many, and kind of opening up those windows for them to go, okay, there's some other opportunity out here maybe that you hadn't considered.
Yeah, my headset on my batteries on my headset just died, so I got to go. Sorry about that. But the whole thing here is that we do have that agency of our decision making. Yeah. I was at dinner last night with my kids. They're 20 and 19, college junior, college sophomore. And we're talking about decision making. And I asked them how they go about their decision process and what do they think. We were talking about values and decision making, and we talked about what values are different that they have than I have, and one of them was work ethic. Okay, let's explore this. The work ethic wasn't ethic, it was hours. What they learned was that their mom did a 9-to-5 work from home post-divorce. Pre-divorce, I did a 7-to-7 live on the road. Post-divorce, I work 7 days a week, but it's not always 9-to-5. I went backpacking last week on Monday and Tuesday with my son because we had this window where he wasn't working and I wasn't working.
That's cool.
But I work Sunday and Saturday. Okay, so what? So that's agency.
Right. That's cool. David, I love what you've done. Love how you've done it. Thanks for kind of bringing the insight to going from multiple mergers, which I love. I just wrote down here, merger equals job loss, which I never really thought.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not if you lose your job, it's when do you lose your job? That's harsh. That's harsh reality, but one that you know very, very well. And I love how you've then taken the pain of that job and a high paying job loss at that, and then created your kind of own mantra of never be displaced, building wealth for others. That's two things that you said there early on that are kind of your driving and motivating forces. You've done it through multifamily. You've taught us some mistakes some lessons rather you've learned through losing $1 million in earnest money, which I'm gonna have to sit down after this show and think about that one. That's hard. And also, breaking the golden handcuffs and the opportunities that lie out there for so many of us. So I just thank you again for coming on the show today. I certainly appreciate it. If our listeners want to get in touch with you and learn more about you, what is the best way to do that? You have two choices, macassets.com, MAC assets, ASSETS.com. And there you can connect with us, or you can follow my podcast, which is also on that website. And that's Break Your Golden Handcuffs.
Break Your Golden Handcuffs and macassets.com. We'll make sure we put both of those there in the show notes. David, thank you again for your time today. I do appreciate it.
Sam, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for listening to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate podcast. If you can do me a favor and subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever platform it is you use to listen, if you can do that for us, that would be a fantastic help to the show. It helps us both attract new listeners as well as rank higher on those directories. So appreciate you listening. Thanks so much, and hope to catch you on the next episode.